For the last session, we have 3 terrific leaders that are going to help to talk about the current climate for business in California. So it's my pleasure to introduce the illustrious panel that we have. First, Katherine August-deWilde is President and CEO of the Partnership for San Francisco that has a mission to help advance San Francisco as a preeminent center for innovation, advance the local economy, and also make it an extraordinary environment for businesses, residents, and visitors. She also serves on the board of Sunrun and InstaWork, and previously spent 30 years as president and CEO of First Republic Bank. And she's also a graduate of the GSB. Our second panelist is Jennifer Barrera. She is president and CEO of the California Chamber of Commerce. She's been president and CEO since 2021, and under her leadership, the Cal Chamber has served as an advocate for California employers, helping to improve the state as a wonderful place to work, do business, and live. And finally, Patti Poppe is the CEO of PG&E. She has been CEO of PG&E since 2021. And she has, PG&E, as you know, or maybe if you don't know, is one of the leading nation's largest utilities serving Northern and Central California with about 16 million customers. Since her tenure as CEO, she has brought along the company, transforming it with lean business practices to help improve customer satisfaction and experience and help to build brand trust. Patti's also a graduate of the Graduate School of Business. So please join me in welcoming them, along with Dean Sarah Soule, who will moderate the conversation.
Thank you, thank you. Lovely to see you again, friends. It's been an absolutely terrific day, and I'm delighted to have the honor of being in conversation with these 3 remarkable leaders. And as Maria just said, this is, of course, a panel that is devoted to thinking about business here in California. And I want to just kind of kick us off by turning first to Jennifer. And Jennifer, I want to talk a little bit, or I would love for you to talk a little bit about the current business climate here in the state. We've seen all of these headlines. Most of us have seen these headlines that, it's sort of controversial. And is it good or is it bad? And I'm hoping you can just kick us off by talking a little bit about the business climate currently here in California.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today to speak to you. It's quite a privilege and honor to be here, especially with the esteemed panelists next to me. The business climate in California is anxious. Everybody's a little bit nervous right now. Businesses thrive on certainty. They thrive on being able to do forecasts and predictions. And there's a lot of challenges right now in the business environment with being able to kind of have those predictions and feeling comfortable about where we're going as a state, where we're headed as a country. Of course, a lot of the federal issues have created uncertainty for businesses, the tariffs, immigration issues, and now a war in Iran. So that causes some challenges for businesses and their predictions, but also there's things here in California that create uncertainty as well. We are facing a huge change in leadership with Gavin Newsom being termed out as governor and a new leader coming in, and that creates a little bit of anxiousness with regards to what that new governor is going to do and what the priorities are going to be. And there's policy changes and challenges here in California from an affordability perspective that all businesses are facing. We often do a lot of big things here in California. It's what we're known for, and that's great. But some of those policy decisions are now coming to bear with regards to costs, and those costs are challenging businesses right now as well. So I would say it's not good, it's not bad. It's right there in the middle, and it's just anxious. And I think, again, you see that with regards to some of the job numbers. I will say, of course, there are headlines all the time that businesses are leaving California. And I'm not going to deny that that's happening, but I don't think it is to the extent that you see, you know what I mean, the headlines. I think that there are a lot of businesses still thriving here in California, focused here in California, planning to remain here in California. And so again, just like the climate, I would say even the narrative about businesses leaving California is probably mixed as well.
Katherine or Patti, did you want to remark at all on this first question? Either of you have a perspective or something that Jennifer offered?
Well, I think your point is very right, which is businesses thrive on certainty, and we have a lot of stickiness going on right now in terms of both regulation and tax uncertainty. And that, compared with all the affordability, makes it difficult. It makes it difficult to headquarter a new company here and wonder where your employees are going to live, if their schools are going to be any good, and how they're going to afford childcare and how they're going to afford transit. And we have to solve those problems, but if we solve those problems with uncertainty in taxes, we'll chase people away also.
Yep.
So it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. I do think, I think we're at an important inflection point. And we have very important choices to make, I would say, right now, to take this moment and turn it into an opportunity and not be afraid to lead. And I do think California has an opportunity to lead in a new and prospering economy. We are grounded in tech, and here at Stanford, I'm always, who can leave this campus and be anything but optimistic? But I'll just offer that I do think we have important choices to make. And, you know, as someone who lived in Michigan for 50 years of my life, it was shrinking, I think, the entire time I lived there. And trust me, that's not nearly as much fun as growing. So I say, California, let's not miss the moment. Let's continue to lead and let's grow this economy. But that's going to take us not getting in each other's way and not picking winners and losers and trying to find the nearest villain. Let's just all recognize that the enemy is not within. We're competing against the world. Let's go win California. Let's do it.
Love it.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, Patti, I want to follow up on a question about that as we think about winning and we think about growing and we think about California. Obviously, energy is going to play an even bigger role in the economy, and electricity in particular, as we see more and more demand with AI-driven growth. As the local utility serving this area and also Central California, how are you approaching that growth, and how do you anticipate meeting that demand for growth in business?
Well, thank you for that question, Dean. First, let me just take a minute and say congratulations to Stanford for this Leadership Institute. Perfectly timed, sort of obvious, like, of course, where but Stanford, but congratulations on the Leadership Institute. So amazing. You know, I could not be more excited about the growth. And this isn't from a place of like just a Pollyanna optimist here. The growth of energy demand has been needed for 20 years. Our grid has been aging, and we've not had new load to add to the grid to fund rebuilding that grid. So today, I know there's a lot of hand-wringing nationally, globally, that we're going to run out of energy and it's just like a scarcity fear. I'm telling you, the growth that we're seeing here in California, and we are seeing it, we've got applications for a massive increase in demand that can lower rates for everyone. Let me just say that again, because you're not going to hear it anywhere else. But trust me, I know the numbers. We can fulfill this new demand in such a way, it's actually, for all the economists in the world, it's just pricing. This is just a pricing question. You charge the appropriate price, you earn a margin in a regulated utility, the margin goes back to customers. It's simple business math. I can't wait to power all of these new and growing businesses here in our state. We have the opportunity to do it. Some things can be hard to build. You know, sometimes we can slow things down. And so working with the California Chamber and creating this opportunity to help inform and teach people about the need to do certainly responsible environmental infrastructure building. But infrastructure is not the problem, it's actually the solution. We've built big things in California before, everybody. And I remind you, it took 15 years to permit the Golden Gate Bridge, 5 years to build it. So it's always been difficult to build big things. But we've done it anyhow. We've done it. And so I cannot express to you, just let me give you a little scale to what I'm talking about. San Jose is a 1 gigawatt city, okay? San Jose utilizes 1 gigawatt as their peak demand. We're adding 2 gigawatts of capacity to San Jose. Why? Because it's growing. And we have a very constructive relationship with the city of San Jose. They've been working with us to accelerate their own permitting process to keep pace with our ability to improve our permitting processes. and using AI to modernize and optimize how that work flows so we can do it faster and safer. And so it's just a perfect microcosm of what's possible for the entire state. We have actually 16 gigawatts of applications right now for the state. So think about that. San Jose is a 1 gigawatt city. San Francisco's about 800 megawatts, so 0.8 gigawatts. 16 gigawatts, team. That's a big number. And that is a number that can fund the rebuilding of our entire grid for the whole state. So I'm for it, and I think we can really make it happen here.
Okay, excellent. That's terrific. Katherine or Jennifer, did you want to remark on this question too, of thinking about AI and AI-driven growth generally in the state?
Well, sorry, Katherine.
Go ahead.
AI-driven growth is so important to the overall health of the state. The general fund, I'm sure everybody has talked about or heard about the fact that we are facing another budget deficit at the state level. And the projections that the governor forecasted in January as to how bad that deficit may be are actually, we're ahead of those numbers because a large part is driven by AI investment. And so it is such an important part of our economy. The innovation economy here is really driving our ultimate state economy. So it's so important that we are providing the energy that this industry needs in order to continue to invest and make it a attractive place to do business here in California. So AI is key to our economy. But I'll just remark on Patti's comment about building out the infrastructure. We can build here in California, and we can actually do it better than what we're doing right now with regards to delays when we talk about the affordability crisis. A lot of the affordability issues are because we are just so slow with some of our red tape and bureaucracy that we have in place. San Jose is doing great things. We have other examples in different regions where they're trying to expedite the permitting, not eliminating any environmental review. Exactly. Of course, we have to have a balance. We're California, after all. We care about our environment, and we should. It's a beautiful location. But we can do better. We don't have to have these significant delays that ultimately add costs to these projects, energy being one of them, but housing. Housing. We can build housing in California at such a faster pace. It is one of the top issues that every employer in California talks to me about, is that they cannot find affordable housing for their workforce. They can't attract talent here because they can't find housing. They can't retain talent here because of it. It is a disservice to the next generation that we are not building housing that those individuals can afford. And so we can do better. We can do better here in California. We can maintain our environmental values, but we can take out some of these obstacles that we have in place to ultimately building out the fundamental projects that we need here in California to continue to thrive and grow.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Great. Katherine, any other last words on that? No. Well, I want to actually turn to thinking about financing growth. And I'm going to turn to you first, Katherine, please. So you have been somebody who has influenced the growth of California businesses in many different ways through your career and through different kinds of lenses, through banking, through wealth management, corporate boards, and so on. What would make, from your perspective, what would make capital flow more readily to California businesses and also infrastructure?
Well, to start, capital flows to California for some very important reasons. Talent is here, and ideas are here, and capital funds innovation. And so that will continue to happen. And so I don't see a problem in capital coming here. The problem is things are too sticky. It's hard to get things done. People are worried about taxes. And it causes the companies that start here not always to be able to stay here. And I think that we should be looking to start the best companies, grow them, and keep them here. California has more Fortune 500 companies than anybody else in the country. By a wide margin, we have more IPOs than anybody else. But we don't always keep them here, and it's because employees have a problem with housing, education being of good enough quality, childcare, and transportation. And if we don't solve those problems, we can't maintain our companies and continue to raise that capital. The other thing I see is that capital is very eager to come here, but they're a little nervous. They're a little nervous to make the investment on a new building. They're a little nervous, and I'm talking maybe more from a San Francisco perspective, where we've seen a lot of ups and downs over many, many decades. But I see capital being interested, but always being a little nervous. Will it really happen? is the rebirth of San Francisco going to last? When the project is done, will there be demand for it? And so I think the more we can do to make it a better place for regulation so that we can build things faster and so that companies aren't afraid of being able to grow here, and have a certainty in taxes and not try to be the most expensive deliverer of everything to our businesses, we'll be better off and we'll attract more capital.
Great, thank you, thank you. Jennifer, I'm going to just come to you too. How would you describe the kind of funding, particularly maybe even thinking about venture funding, but others as well, for California businesses generally?
I mean, I agree with Katherine. We definitely have funding here. We have capital here. Accessing it is probably a little bit more challenging for some businesses, and I think there's a little bit more strict guidelines or requirements on some of these companies to access that. Certainly for small businesses, it's quite a challenge, but it's not that it's not here. And so I don't have much to add on that, on Katherine's point, other than just creating an environment in which investment can flourish, like creating that certainty in the environment. I think again about the comment she made about a tax structure. The current uncertainty right now that we have in California over what our tax structure is going to be is really challenging for anybody to make long-term investments because they can't project or forecast what that ultimate revenue is going to be from whatever project or whatever business that they're ultimately investing in. Businesses have a hard time right now kind of doing that prediction, and sometimes in Sacramento, we provide tax credits, or we provide these incentives, and when the budget gets tough or when challenges hit, we often pull those away, again, making it very uncomfortable for investments to come into California because of the lack of certainty. So I echo 100% what she is saying, and that goes across the state, is that we just need to do a better job at creating a regulatory environment that provides some more predictability and certainty for these investments.
The other thing that happens is, it's not so much that investment won't be here, but that we're not sure the companies will stay here. Mm-hmm. And that makes it difficult to imagine how big our school systems should be, how big our utilities should be. I saw some work done after the incremental 3% tax was made permanent in California. And about 9% of our tax base left in companies and in people over about a 4 or 5 year period. And doing some research, they all went to states where they didn't have taxes, they had lower taxes. And it's better to build a bigger tax base than to lead to the kind of uncertainty that those decisions were making on people.
Yes, very good point.
Yeah.
Patti, you were going to
remark.
I'll
I'll just add, we do have one acute capital attraction problem here in California right now, and that's the investor-owned utilities. So I'm going to talk my book for just a second. After the fires in LA last year, the investors in the investor-owned utilities left. So we dropped in value about 30%. The investor-owned utilities in California trade, we do a very easy comparison with our PE ratios. We trade at a 50% discount to the rest of the sector because of wildfire risk in California and the liability regime that exists here. I'm grateful the governor has led, and the state legislature is looking at a revision to a law that was passed last year. It was more of a stopgap. There's a second phase that's being considered this year. I cannot express how important this is for California to have liability reform as it relates to wildfires. And I'm not talking about any kind of free pass. What I'm talking about is making sure that we're investing in community hardening, that, you know, the LA fires were a confluence of factors, but one of the biggest factors was 3 days of 100-mile-per-hour winds. Our communities must be hardened to wildfire. And so investors of investor-owned utilities see that risk and are taking a pause until this legislation is addressed this year. So it's a very, very important legislative package for the promise of building the electric infrastructure, because just a quick teeny lesson in how infrastructure is funded in California and globally, really, but here in the United States, our investor-owned utility model is a cash flow negative business. We attract investor capital so that we can spread out that infrastructure investment over the life of the assets to customers. In other words, we get equity investors who invest in the infrastructure, and then we spread out the cost for customers. And so it's a much more affordable way to invest in massive infrastructure that I'm talking about that will fuel the economy of California. So our challenge right now is being able to attract that equity investment. And our credit metrics are sub-investment grade. This should be a concern to us when I talk about the potential of the prosperity of California fueled by power. No economy is fueled by anything but power. We have to power the prosperity of our state, and we have to be able to invest equity investors and borrow at a lower cost when we have better credit metrics. So I just ask you to keep an eye on Senate Bill 254, Phase 2, and what's happening in Sacramento. And as just an illustration, this is why business must be engaged in good policy for the state. That is, everything I just said is very complicated. I'd be shocked if any of you think about it again, ever. But the point here is that this is why the Cal CEO Council and the San Francisco Partnership is so important, to have CEOs at the table for California. Not for themselves, not for their own business. I want to power our economy. Our profits will follow. That is a lagging indicator. The leading indicator is great service at the lowest cost possible, and good policy enables that. So I'm very thankful for these two women for leading these two very important organizations, San Francisco Partnership and the Cal CEO Council, which are new entities in the last 2 years that have been established to have the voice of business influencing policy in California's prosperity.
I love this. So I wanted to just sort of call out to folks who weren't here in the morning session with me and Rishi Sunak something, and that is we are launching the Stanford Leadership Institute in part to call attention to some of the actual, some of these points that have just been made by these three leaders, and that is that as leaders, of course, it's important to focus on our own personal leadership skills, but we have to do, as you three are doing so remarkably well, think very strategically about the context in which you're leading, understanding that that while you are both embedded in this multi-layered and very complicated context, you also have some agency to try to change that through organization and through your leadership skills. And that is really the core of the Stanford Leadership Institute that we are launching today. And as we think about leadership, I want to switch to the role of thinking about the role of business leaders in what we're talking about today in California and the growth in our economy. And I'm going to ask each of you a question, and Katherine, I'll begin with you. And as Patti's just said, you of course lead the Partnership for San Francisco that's bringing private sector expertise and resources to help the city. So how do you see business leaders having impact?
San Francisco has an interesting history in terms of business leaders being and not being involved with the city and with civic life. 30 or 40 years ago, there were people who were involved, and it worked very well. And over the last several decades, San Francisco was in an enviable position. Talent wanted to be here, so businesses wanted to be here. And people took it very much for granted. And we didn't get involved in civic life. We got very much the government we deserved, which was an unfortunate situation. And with a new mayor, with a bit more moderate board of supervisors, and with a population that really understands that business is important for their children to get jobs, to fund the things they need from a tax point of view, the partnership has come into a perfect point in time where we can be the voice to speak to City Hall about what's needed, and they can talk to us. For example, the mayor has a couple of important priorities. One is a tax that will help support our muni, and there also is a tax that will support BART, that's 5 counties. Well, if those things don't pass, it'll be very hard for business to be in San Francisco or the Bay Area, because we won't be able to get around, and that's a big problem. There's some other issues like that he has brought his attention, he's brought our attention to those issues. And then we brought his attention to things that were very important to us. Many more police officers on the street, much more quickly, not just safe, but safe and clean. And so it's really the benefit of a dialogue. Mm-hmm. And it's an influence body.
Yeah. And that really did come out if those of you were here for the lunchtime session with Ken Schatz and Mayor Lurie. That was really quite a stunning set of ideas and so on. So thank you. Patti, when you think about what Katherine's been building and colleagues have been building with the partnership for San Francisco, do you think this could scale to the state level? And what do you think CEOs can do to support, generally, California's economic growth?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and therefore the creation of the California CEO Council, which is statewide CEOs that have come together with the California Chamber to extend the San Francisco partnership. I sit on the San Francisco partnership and certainly was inspired. And many of you know Hamid Mohadman. He really gave me the baton, I think. He said, Patti, I'm leaving, but you have to do this for the state. And so I took my marching orders, and he and I had talked several times about the importance of a CEO council to bring real data, to bring a fresh perspective, if you will, a business perspective, to the conversations that are happening in Sacramento. And I think it's been missing. It's very interesting to me as being a relative newbie here in California. I've been here for 5 years now. But the rest of my career, as I mentioned, I was in Michigan, and we had a CEO council in Michigan that was very effective. We had a scorecard that we used every year that was the status of the state. We had ambitions to be top 10 in key quality of life and quality of business, including things like education, because workforce development is essential. And so we had a suite of metrics that we watched routinely and picked a policy issue or two and learned what was the difference between the best performing states and economies versus our own, and what did we need to change in order to compete with the best in the world. And it was very impactful, I would say. And so I'm excited about what we're forming here, because I think business does bring a data-driven, problem-solving, pragmatic approach. We want what's best for California because we live here too. And so I don't think there needs to be a business versus labor, or business versus customer advocates. It's an and. We can stand for we can stand for California. We want California to prosper. And so I just think it's really a great opportunity for CEOs to use our data-driven mindsets and our problem-solving expertise for the good of all. And so we're pretty excited about the group that's formed, and I'll let Jen say a little more about that.
Yeah. Good. I'll turn to you, Jennifer, in just a moment, but I wanted to just give a shout out. Hamid's another GSB alum.
Yes, he's another GSB alum. I know he's got a lot of friends in the house.
Yep. And a terrific HBR piece that he recently just authored about some of his leadership philosophy and so on. So it's a great one if you have a moment. So nice plug for another one of our alums. So Jennifer, let's talk a little bit about the Cal CEO program, and how do you think this can help California to be more advantageous in terms of being a great place for business?
I'll just reflect on a comment that Patti made earlier, that we're at an inflection point here in California, where we're kind of again dealing with an affordability crisis that is largely due to a lot of policy choices that we've made in the past. Good intentioned, but just need to be reevaluated to decide whether or not we continue to move forward. Do we make some changes? Do we adopt some new policies? And so for a very long time in Sacramento, there has been, of course, the Chamber of Commerce, other business groups, other special interest groups that advocate a bit for the legislature, but there has been missing kind of this other group, the CEOs. And before I started leading the California Chamber of Commerce, I was the one going to these offices and lobbying on behalf of business groups on particular issues. And I can't tell you how many times I would get asked, well, where's the CEO of company X, Y, or Z? If it's so important to the CEO, then why am I not hearing from them? And it was a missing voice, quite honestly, at the legislature, and it's a fair question. If this truly is going to be so harmful to what XYZ industry, then why isn't that industry actually reaching out and calling me? And so I think the CEO Council fills that missing piece, that void, and really elevates the discussion with regards to business and how businesses are operating here in California. And it comes at the perfect time, again, when we're dealing with a lot of these issues that really could benefit from the expertise of this collective group of CEOs who have been running these large businesses and are invested here in California. I think, to your earlier question about the narrative of businesses leaving California, you have a group of CEOs who are committed to California, so committed that they are now spending their time identifying issues that they can contribute their resources, their time, to being a partner on addressing and trying to, again, benefit all of California, because yes, they live here, but their entire workforce lives here and they want to see the state be successful. So I do think it just elevates the discussion, and it does so at a really critical time in California where we can definitely utilize their expertise.
I love that. And for those of you who were able to see Amit Saru and Ken Griffin in conversation earlier, I'm reminded of something that they were discussing, and that is the role of CEOs to exercise voice when it is in the wheelhouse of what their business is and so on. And this strikes me as really resonant with part of that conversation. So I'm glad you said that. And we have just a couple of minutes before we get to go to reception and continue the conversation one-on-one. And so, it strikes me that we have some students in the room who may be thinking about starting businesses here in California, and we have business leaders in the room who currently are leading businesses in California. So I'm hoping maybe in rapid fire sort of way, each of you could offer some advice to either people who are thinking about starting businesses here or who are currently running businesses here in California. Maybe we'll start with Katherine and just go down the line and end with Patti.
There's no better place to do it. All the innovation is here. All the talent wants to be here. You just have to be committed in your mind that you're going to make it happen. I knew I wanted to live in San Francisco. In fact, that's one of the reasons I came across the country to go to business school here. I wanted to live here, and I felt if I went to school here, it would be easier for me to do that. And I never wavered from that view. And so I built my relationships here. The innovation is here. The finance, the capital is here. And it's a spectacular place to live. And we all have to work together to solve the problems that are here and that are in every other place.
Great. Yeah, Jennifer.
It is the best place to do business. I completely agree. It is the best place to live. I would just say to all of those business leaders and wanting to be business leaders, stay engaged. I know it's self-serving as an advocate at the state level, but I really will tell you your voice absolutely matters. It is an important voice to be heard when they're shaping the policies of this state. Business is a crucial partner in all of this, and they are fundamental to the growth of our economy. And so stay engaged, whether that's at your community level or even at the state level. Make sure you know who your representatives are and make your voice heard, because it really does matter.
Patti.
Well, as a business who has a Piper wire connected to almost every one of the dwellings and buildings in the state of California, I'm happy to report that we do have growth on the horizon, and that growth can fuel our economy. And something that we teach something called breakthrough thinking at PG&E, and it's a concept. And so for future business leaders, I want to give you this concept, and here's $1 million question that you can ask. Don't ever ask the question, is it possible? Because everyone will tell you all the reasons why your big idea is not possible. What I'm going to tell you is to ask, what has to be true to achieve your wild idea? And then next thing you know, you've broken down your opportunity, your idea, and this thing just, okay, well, I'll do this, and then I'll do that, and I'll do that. And it's through that thinking that we've been able to, while making our system the safest system for wildfire in the world, now seen as that for the world. We also have reduced rates. I would be in trouble if I didn't mention this from the stage. We have reduced rates 5 times in the last 2 years. Our most vulnerable customers' energy bills are down 23% in the last 2 years because of us not being willing to accept our current condition as what it is, but instead asking the question, what would have to be true? And we are on the path to continue to power and fuel our economy and do it at a lower and more affordable cost. So we are on the job, and we've taken a stand to serve you and to serve you better every day. We're not done yet, but we're definitely working for you every day.
Thank you. When I reflect on some of the wisdom that these three terrific leaders have shared with us, I think about what's the role of the Stanford Graduate School of Business in helping to drive growth in California. And one of the things that I like to say is that if we are successful, all of our students, some of whom are here on the stage, will leave here with an entrepreneurial mindset as an investor and as a leader. And I hope that we will be successful in helping to continue to drive economic growth in California. Please join me in thanking these three terrific panelists. And I would also like to thank again many of the people in this audience who have supported the development and growth and launch of the Institute, in particular, Andreas and Diane Halverson, who are sitting in the front row. But many, many others who are here with us today, and for believing that we could launch this, and for supporting our faculty director, Ken Schatz, and director, Maria France, in this journey. Thank you both so much. And to the entire team who has helped support this event today, it's been wonderful, and there's more, because there is a reception waiting outside for all of us to continue the conversation, to engage in dialogue, and to think through and give us more advice on the continued launch of the Stanford Leadership Institute. So outside in Town Square under that beautiful tent, we will see you there shortly. Thank you.